Day at lunchtime. I am loving that I get to be on here with you guys today. Again, as I always say, talking about one of my favorite topics because I choose these topics because I like to talk about them. Um, so here today we're talking about stressed out kiddos, and you'll see in that title that'll come from infants to teens because it comes in every form. Don't like to see the infants stressing out. Don't like to see the teenagers stressed out. The biggest things is they need help. And we need to take action on it. And if we're not choosing to accept it to its fullest extent, really good idea, mom, dad, caretaker, whoever you are, to take your head of the sand a little bit and just see it for what it is. And it might be painful, it might be shocking, it might be a little bit overwhelming, but I promise you that there's hope and there's courses of action that you can take to help your kiddos be less stressed out. Tough thing is that they live in 2023. It's a stressful and toxic world. More stressful and toxic today than it was yesterday. And I'm just going to assume it's going to be the same way moving forward because that's the trend that it's happened over the last couple decades. So how do you identify a stressed out kiddo? What's actually happening in their neurology, brain and central nervous system? And what can you do to help them? So how do you recognize it? Okay. Let's start with infants. We'll go, how about we do this? Infants, toddlers, young kids, teenagers. So infants, stressed out infants. And obviously inconsolable crying, obviously tense system. The lax system can also be really, really way overly floppy. Kiddos. Kiddos who don't make proper eye contact, who never smile, those who don't engage with you, the ones who potential for not nursing very well from being stressed out from being in utero or the birth process, all possible there. So if you feel like your kid's stressed out, mom, or dad, your intuition is the greatest thing. Your toddler's crazy amounts of tantrums, sensory issues, sleeping difficulties, which also goes back to infants, not wanting to eat certain things, not looking in your eyes, not interacting, just not being the best expression of themselves, the complacency in the toddlerhood, the not wanting to go do things, not wanting to leave their environment, not wanting to always leave your side. Pieces of that is being bonded to parents. I talk about this with parents regularly, is kids might not be as outgoing as their other peer counterparts who have been in daycare for the full time if they are at home with mom and dad and just interact with mom and dad. Might be a little bit more apprehensive to embrace the world because they're really bonded with you and they have a great life with you at home. So that's just another piece of that. Older kiddos, not wanting to try new things, seemingly anxious, seemingly uncomfortable, drawing back socially as they get to that social age, 5 years of age plus. Extra big emotions, just throwing fits about doing new things, throwing fits about changes in the schedule. They're very inflexible. They are not wanting to open up and having bigger conversations about their feelings and their emotions in their life. They're shut off. They're disconnected. Don't look in your eyes. Aren't willing to express love. Stressed out kiddos. Okay, that applies pretty much to the same thing as teenagers. Just kind of compounds and gets complex. A lot of times what happens is, let's say, mom, you had a really stressful pregnancy, or you might be a little bit anxious or uncomfortable. You teach your baby's brain inside your womb about the world, and they feel stressed out when they're born, or the opposite. And sometimes it's the opposite. Moms can be really anxious and have a really, really calm baby. But the birth process also influences that as well. So if that goes uncorrected, then we have stressed out toddlers, then that transforms into stressed out older kiddos, then stressed and anxious and depressed teenagers, and then that just compounds into adulthood. The thing that I would highly recommend, whatever age your kid is, you can't go back. You have the rest of their life moving forward. Today, moving forward, take action upon that to get them help, to help them better adapt to the world and or remove stressors in their life that are really, really important to get out. Because here's the reality. When it comes to health, Stress is what the world says, research says, is the number one leading cause of ill things going on in our body. Okay? Stress, toxicity loads, all of that are going to cause that ill health, but it all stems out of stress. So, getting the stress under control, getting them more balanced, getting them in a proper way of living and proper way of functioning, therefore their body is going to properly respond. Their nervous system is going to respond. So, what happens within that? When your kiddo, whatever age it is, if they are in more of a freeze aspect, if they are complacent, if they are down, if they are like just unwilling to engage with you emotionally, socially, that's not the best place to be. It's actually one of the hardest stress places to be, because then we have to go to the fight and flight stress response. So then once we unravel that stress, now they're going to feel potentially more anxious. Now they're going to have bigger emotions. Now they're going to have physicality. Now that stress is going to be able to come out as you step up that brainstem and you get them out of that stress response. Now you're going to have those things come out. So if they're in the place of really tense or really emotional or really like physical or really angry or whatever, that's a better place to start than if we were in more of a freeze or more of a down aspect of things. Other things that can show out within that stage in the fight, flight, freeze response is the biting of nails, the pulling of hair, the constant picking, all the fidgeting things as well. So that's a good thing to note as well when you're assessing your child. Where you want to get them to is once they get out of that fight, flight, freeze response, we're then going to get into a place of their central nervous system when that stress isn't overburdening them, that they can view the world in a positive manner, where they can be in a balanced state, where they can interact with themselves, people who are close to them in the world, in a way that their nervous system was intended. It's called proper vagal tone. Their prefrontal cortex is acting the way that it should. When I talk about neurology, if you've ever listened to me before, is we have to do that. We have to be in that place consistently, because your brain's going to, whether it's an unhealthy pattern or a healthy pattern, your brain's going to get in this loop of being on this track. And it takes time and consistency to develop a new state of being or an improper, less healthy way of functioning. So we have to be consistent with what we're doing. As we see progress, what a lot of people like to do is we like to jump off the bandwagon. Everything's better, right? This is how we've been educated on health, is that everything's fine. No, we need to keep consistently doing the things that we're improving. And then once we're improved, maybe we can dial back on things and we can decrease them, but we still need to do them consistently in our lives. Things like exercising, right? You might have worked out a bunch to get to a certain place in your life, whether you like to exercise, where you're muscular, you feel your cardiovascular health is in a great place, you like the way that you look. You can't just stop exercising and expect to be that same way. The same goes for stress response and adaptability to stress. The same way goes for eating, the same way goes for lifestyle, the same way goes for having a healthy relationship. You just can't get to a good place consistently working with your spouse and then just dump all the things that you worked. Your relationship's going to crumble again, because you need to put time and energy and effort into the things that make you healthy. Sadly, because here's the reality, is that our lives and our world of 2023 did not cater to balance and health and adaptability to stress and calmer ways of being. So we need to get them out of that place. So how do we get them out of that place? In our world, what we do every single day is we access the nervous system through chiropractic care in a gentle and honoring manner through the ways that we do things. We monitor it throughout time to make sure that we're making the impact that we want to be making, in the progression that we want to make it, in the way that we want to make it. And we see these kiddos come out of that freeze to fight, to stress, to response, to better adapting to stress. With that, they get adjusting consistently and they get to a place where they have to do it less frequently in order to stay there. It's amazing. It's how I am in my own life. It's how my family is. So many people that we take care of in so many other offices around the country. If that sounds awesome to you, give us a call or we'll send you to somebody who will work out well with. The big pieces of all of this, right, when you're getting your kids the help that they need, is it's not just about minimizing stress. Is it important to remove major stressors? And sometimes some kiddos that we take care of, let's say kiddos who have split households where one of the parents is ratherly unhealthy when it comes to mentally and emotionally, and the other parent's very balanced. Can we help that kiddo better adapt to that stress of being with that other parent so that they handle it better and their life doesn't get thrown off when they're at that other parent's house and when they come back to the more calm, balanced place? Yes, we absolutely can. However, I can never fully remove that other stressor, and it's going to consistently stress out their nervous system. We just need to help them get to a better place when they're adapting to stress. So there are some of those stressors that you can't fully remove, and that's why it's always important to do things to help you better adapt and your kiddos to better adapt to stress. Big ones are if you can remove those stressors and you know what those stressors are that's stressing out your kid, do them, remove them, be out of them, get done with it. It might be painful, it might be uncomfortable, whatever it is, or actively try to make a change so it's no longer stressful from that external point, right? So I'm a dad, right? So, and I get grumpy sometimes. We all do. Dad of 2 kids, I get grumpy sometimes. It's important for me to work on getting frustrated at my children, 5-year-old, right? That's a stressor that I can minimize. So I am actively working on, this is in my life right now, I'm actively working on minimizing that stress for my children because it's not okay for me to get frustrated and grumpy and yell, right? Not cool. So I'm minimizing that, and therefore my children are responding better. My daughter's responding better to me because I'm learning. I'm a parent. There was no guidebook, right? So that's a stressor that I'm minimizing in our lives. Things like technology throughout the day is stressful for your kiddos. Get them off that stuff as much as you can, right? And if they go to the public school system, they're on it all day. So minimize that technology. Make your environment more calm. Purge out a bunch of electromagnetic frequencies in your house, especially around dinner or especially around nighttime. Get the things out, like the crappy food, all that stresses out their system, stresses out their body. Minimize that. But you can't just minimize and expect it all to go away. You have to repattern their central nervous system back into a way of being because it's got addicted. What's also a part of the stress response. As we get older, we become addicted to that stress response. That's why things like coffee and Adderall are 2 massive substances that adults use. Why? Coffee gives us that ramped up, get stuff done type mentality where I'm going to plow through it and then you have that crash. Same things with what goes with Adderall. A lot of college age kids get themselves addicted on Adderall, and then adults get on Adderall because they can be extremely productive. They use that stress response in order for production, which is important when you have a life-threatening thing go on where you need to fight or flight or freeze, and that stress response puts you in that good manner. However, if we're on that hamster wheel of that stress response, our body and brain get addicted to those stress hormones. And then in order to feel productive and balanced in our life, we feel like we have to go to that response in order to be happy and get things done and be productive in our lives. The reality is that our brains were actually programmed to be very productive, be very calm and masterful in the things that we do. And if we can teach our kiddos and do things in our life to be more balanced right now, their brains are going to grow up and be healthy around the sense of being calm and getting things done and being in a state of good flow where we don't have to cater our nervous systems to being in that stress response in order to be productive in our lives. And it's way easier to get out that stress and tension from your kiddos than it is as an adult. As an adult, it takes a long, long time. It takes a lot of consistency in every aspect of your life to become more balanced. And the reality is you're still going to have that crease. We call it crease in your paper, right? In early age, flat piece of paper that's balanced, right? You crease it, try to unfold it, smooth it out, iron it out. You're still going to have that little crease. So in your life, say you're like, man, I'm definitely stressed out, and I have been for a long time. I remember back being a kid and being stressed out. Things get hard in your life, you're automatically going to fold back to that stress, right? Unless you get yourself to a place, you get your kiddos to a place, right, that never giving up on the things that got you to the place of where you are today. And only it's going to have that old pattern fade away. That's what happens in neurology. If you don't feed that pattern, you don't feed that way of being, and you stop that way of being and you support other healthy aspects to get you into a new place, you continually support those. Over time, that old pathway neurologically just begins to dismantle itself. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years down the line, things get crazy. Your brain's not going to automatically go back to that old way. It dissipates over time. So same thing happens with your kid. Way easier to get it out when your kid is 2 weeks old than it is when your kiddo is 10, 12, 18 years old. Can you still get it out at 10, 12, 18 years old? Sure. It's much more difficult. It then gets to a point where they understand themselves neurologically. It's way easier to get it out of your kiddos when they don't fully understand themselves and can't use their own mind to be like, well, this is the way I am. This is how I operate. How do I interact with the world this way? Like other people aren't this way. That's when they start to socially get to that point, that's when it becomes even more challenging. But again, it can still be done. There's not loss of hope. Even if you're an adult and you're like, man, I remember my mom always told me I was so tense as a baby, and here I am at 40 years old. It can still help. You can still get to a place where you feel balanced and calm in your body. And you're most likely listening to this because of your children. So it's important to take action today by helping your kiddos better adapt to stress with things like chiropractic care, things like removing technology, things like having healthier relationships in your life, healthier balance, things, go around your house and assess things and take action on things that you can minimize and then help them better adapt. And they will be in a better place today, tomorrow, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, 4 months from now, a year from now, when you've consistently been doing these things and you're teaching your kids how to be outside of the stress response. And that is a beautiful state of being because their brain functions the way that it was designed and their body responds to that in the way that it is meant to be. And that's where we get health. So thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, throw them on the chat. Send me an email, davidlutz@purelightfamily.com. Give us a call, ask me in the office, whatever it may be. I would love to answer your questions and help you and your family get on the track of having more balance, less stressed out, happier, thriving, what we call superhuman chiro kids. Take care.